Hey, welcome to the Cash for Your Home podcast. So good to have you on the show here, Barb. Now, I know you're in Colorado, and I know you do a lot of cash offers for homes. So I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk a little bit about a cash offer for your home and what it is and what it means to a seller, a home seller. And
Yeah.
so before we get into that, though, let me just ask you a little bit about you. So you're in Colorado, and you've been a realtor for how long?
Oh, 20, it's coming up on 29 years. A
Wow,
long time.
wow. What got you into real estate?
It was by accident. My background, I was in the Navy, so I'm a Navy veteran. I worked in the control towers in the Navy. From that, I got jealous, so I learned how to fly, got out of the service, and became a regional airline pilot, which was really fun. However, my husband was flying for American, so once our son came along, there was no way both of us could be out of town with a baby. So I just stayed at home for a little while. And then my dad suggested, why don't you get into real estate? And so I just did. And I've always liked housing and houses, and it's always been something that's near and dear to my heart. So it ended up it was a big surprise to me when I got into the business, because what I found was there was no, I came from a more or less technical background of being an air traffic controller, being a pilot, with those kind of things. Everything had a system and a checklist and a way you did things. And when I got into real estate, it wasn't the same thing. In fact, I got my license. I went and hung it with a broker because that's what you had to do for the first 2 years. And I went to meetings here and there, but there was no how to. And I started asking questions. Well, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And I was learning that the other agents in the office did not want to share with me because I was effectively one of their competitors. We were all like independent businesses within a business. And so I had to strike out on my own and learn. I took a lot of classes. Um, Soon I became what they call a top producer, which meant you were selling one home a month, which I thought, well, that's just average to me. But even to this day, here we are, fast forward 29 years later, um, the average agent only sells 3 to 4 homes a year, and half of the agents don't sell any. So there's a problem in the industry. They're not very good at teaching how to. There is no how to on how to help people buy a house or how to help people sell a house. And so everybody just kind of copies each other and does their own thing. And it really has been an education for me. So I, got with mastermind groups that were really doing it well. And that's where this cash offer program came from.
Oh, wow.
Because, if you look at the whole traditional sales process, it is not easy. It's not fun. I mean, you have to make your house look like a model. Most people's homes don't look like a model. And then you have to be available all the time to show the home. That's difficult for most people, especially if they have kids and dogs and cats and whatever. I had one that had birds recently. Um, and so when you have all those issues and you have strangers coming in your house judging the condition of your home, there's a lot of factors that happen. Is the agent that's with them going to encourage them to want to make an offer? How well are they trained? Well, they're not. In fact, they are actually going to say bad things about the house to try to position themselves as quote experts. And so we kept running against those headwinds. Most of my business is helping people sell a home, but we also have a whole team that works buyers. And we found that, sometimes the other agents that were supposed to be helping their buyers buy this home were working against them and talking them out of it. And it just didn't make sense. So and then once you finally do get a contract, then you're dealing with an inspection. And in this state, it's different in other states, but in this state, and it's probably true in many states, there is no criteria or basically government oversight to be a house inspector. Like I could be an inspector and I'm scary with the screwdriver in my hand, right? So um, these guys come in and they scare the buyer out of buying the home. They come up with all these ideas of why this home needs this or it needs that, which may or may not be accurate. And the agents are just determined to get stuff from the seller in that phase of the transaction. And some are legit, some are not. I just a few weeks ago, I had an agent turn the house into the county regional building department because it didn't have a permit for the basement, to get stuff. That was her motivation. So, and she even lied about it on top. She said, "Oh, regional building red tagged the house." So she sent it on text. So I walked down to regional building and said, "Did your inspector say this? They haven't even been in the house yet." And he goes, "No, we would never say that. We don't do that." So there's craziness that goes on in the industry, and the agents do it to justify their value, their worth, especially now when commission is no longer offered in the MLS. That's how they prove to their buyers that they have some value. Oh, let me just beat up on the seller and get stuff. So that whole experience from the time you go on the market to closing to the walkthrough, and they're still asking for stuff on the walkthrough if they don't like the way the repairs that were agreed upon were done, is not fun for sellers. And so many more and more, it's getting to be about 30% of home sellers now are willing to accept a cash offer and willing to take even less equity if they have to, just to avoid all that chaos. And that's why it's become very, very popular.
It sounds like, first of all, I know it sounds like you deal a lot with sellers. You
I
do
do.
on the sellings. If you had to take a stab at it, as a wild guess, over the years, how many transactions do you think you've done in real estate over the years?
I'm going to guess it probably between 3,000 and 3,500.
Wow.
So it's quite a
Wow.
bit.
That's way above that average you were talking about.
Yeah.
That
And
sounds
I
like more
enjoy
like,
it. It's fun. It's fun for me. I like people. I like helping them. I'm very, if they work with me, I'm their best advocate. I'm going to fight for them to the end because it means a lot to me that they have a good experience. And sometimes it's the outside environments like the other agents or the inspectors or the appraisers or the lenders that make the experience miserable. And that's why people are like, "Hey, I can just get, 6 or 8 cash offers, pick the best one, pick my closing date, collect the money at closing, I'm good to go." And it's as is. You don't have to deal with showings. You don't have to deal with getting kids and dogs out of the house. I have one client right now where her home is very personalized, lots of plants and just a lot of stuff everywhere. And that's the way she likes to live. And that's fine. Nice home in a nice neighborhood. But her pets are in one bedroom, some birds, probably a half a dozen parrot, whatever they are, parrots, little birds, and they're not in cages. And then she also has 3 cats, right? So you have to keep that door closed. And I told her, I said, "Look, if you just allow agents to show this home willy-nilly, they are going to leave that door open. The birds are going to get out and the cats are going to eat the birds. So the traditional sales process is not going to work for you." She goes, "Oh, I don't want the cats to eat the birds." I'm like, "Of course not." Now we have 2 solutions. We could just have a very narrow showing window and be there for the showings and stand guard on the bird room. That's one option. Or we could get her a cash offer where she doesn't have to have any strangers coming in her house. She doesn't have to decorate her house to make it look like a model, because a majority of the buyers decide whether or not they're going to go see a home based on the online pictures. That is, these days, that is your number one showing. Okay. And if you don't impress them, they are not going to even leave their fuzzy bunny slippers and get in their car and drive by
right.
to take a look at the home. It's just not going to happen, right? They have to love everything about it to get them to bother to pursue it. That's how it is right now. There's this expectation that I have to see every nook and cranny of the home before I bother to drive over to see it. And so for some people, the way they live, it's hard to present the home that way. It's just not going to work. So these cash offers are wonderful for them.
I've not bought a ton of homes, but I've been around a little while, and I've never heard of anybody that I know selling a home without a showing. In fact, I've got a friend who just went under contract, and we've been friends for a while. And I watched him sell his last home and buy this one. And I sell in this one, and the showings were just the worst because he's trying to work from home, and it's just
Yeah.
so. I've never heard of someone selling their house without a showing. So that's a real thing. You can actually do that.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time. In fact, I had one that we put on the market, and it was, we've been working on this for months. So we first met in July, and we established a price then. I said, we got to revisit this before you go on the market late October. So we did that. And when we met late October, it was like, look, the market is correcting. The prices are dropping right now. And look at the homes that have sold for the original price that we talked about. They are nicer than yours. They have views. They have more square footage. Or you could be like everybody else and stick your home on the market for that time frame and wait 3 or 4 months to get a contract. Well, she's got a pregnant daughter in another state, so she can't wait 3 or 4 months. I said, you need to price the home below current market value to get a contract right away. So we dropped the price about 4.5%, went on the market, and it sold day one with a cash buyer sight unseen. And
Wow.
we got it 10,000 over asking.
So it was a cash buyer, and it was
Mhm.
10,000 over asking.
Yep.
Well,
And no one saw the house. In fact, the buyer didn't see the house until days later, and she said, yes, I still love it, and no inspection, and we're good to go. No
so
appraisal.
that's I want to eventually circle back to how your brokerage is different in that you have these offers and how that pertains to your brokerage. But first, when I hear about cash offer, I just think, I mean, I don't know why, but I think like, oh, foreign investors, like Russian oligarchs with billions of dollars. Like, but you said that the cash offer buyer, she came and saw the house after the fact. So who
That's
are
right.
these buyers? Who's putting the cash offers out there?
You know, it varies. We have local buyers that want to buy homes, right? And just to back up a little bit, it's all cash to the seller at closing, right? They end up with real money at closing, whether they're getting a loan or not. However, it's the loan process and the appraisal process and loan approval process that are just 3 or 4 of the factors that could derail a closing or delay a closing or put it in doubt. Let me share a story with you. I had last year, I sold a listing. It was a Marine. He was a former infantry officer, which my son does that. And so very near and dear in my heart. He went on to be a CEO of something, kind of a bigwig. And I was sitting with him. And when I first met with him, I said, what's most important about selling your home? He goes, I want the most money. I said, okay, well, the way you get the most money is not by overpricing. It's not going to work. And I could tell he wasn't all in with me, right? So one of our options, besides just showing up with cash offers, is we put the house on the market. Nobody gets in the door until the open house, and it's only open for 1 hour. So we did that. We went on the market. We priced it what we call very realistically. We had 40 people in the house in 1 hour. I got 10 offers, but it was the offer presentation time that was exciting because when I sat down with him, I was so proud of myself. I had probably at least half of those 10 offers were over asking price. The top two highest one was at six. It was just over asking price, but then they were willing to go up to 680 cash. I'm like, great. Then there was another one that was just over asking price, and they do something called an escalation clause. We'll pay 2,000, 5,000 over the highest offer up to X. Well, their X was like 720. And so I said, but that buyer is not cash. They're getting a loan. And we have to prove to an appraiser that this home is worth that number of 720. Well, the highest number we had was 7, which was a much more updated home. So the chances, and it had views. So the chances of getting that number were not as good. And so I explained the whole process that, if they're getting a loan, we go under contract, they do the inspection, then they have an appraisal. And if the appraiser doesn't think it's worth that much, the appraiser could say, no, no. And now we have to walk the price backwards. So he looked at me Well, first of all, when I presented the offers, let me back up. When I presented the offers, I said, "Okay, this is what we have." And he goes, "Oh, Barb, when we first met, I told you I wanted the most money. How are you going to get me the most money?" And I was a little intimidated. I was all proud of myself sitting there with 10 offers. In fact, I asked him, "Isn't this fun?" And he was scorning at me like, "Get me the most money." I'm like, "Okay, yes, sir, I'm on it." So I said, "All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to the top two buyers, and I'm gonna say this. I'm like, okay, look, we have other offers. You know, there's a lot of good competition. Is this your buyer's best and highest? You need to tell me what is your best and highest, because we're only going to pick one buyer." So both of those buyers came up in price. One came up, the cash buyer came up to 700, so he came up 20,000. And then the other agent told me, "Oh yeah, she'll go to 740. I know for sure." Right. So, so I presented the whole scenario of, if we take the 740, we still got to worry about the appraiser that may walk the price down because we didn't have similar sales to substantiate that number. And he looked at me and he goes, "Seems to me this process is like wallowing around in the mud until the end when you know you're going to close." And I said, "That's exactly right." It
That's
was like
hilarious.
he related it to some kind of marine event. Like, let's wallow in the mud, let's beat each other up, and then, okay, we're good. We're going to close. And that's true. That does kind of define the whole traditional sales process. So that seller ended up taking the sure bet, the cash buyer, for 700, and we closed. So
Wow. So the sure bet was the cash buyer.
it was. Yep. And that was
Wow.
40,000 less than the other offer. And that's
Wow.
not uncommon. We might have squeezed a little more about the other contract, but that means I had to show up in front of the appraiser and do a rug dance and prove to him that it was worth that much, which for that type of loan could be very challenging, because even appraisers have people looking over their shoulder to make sure, well, why didn't you pick that similar sale, or why didn't you pick that one? So it's a lot more scrutiny when you're dealing with a loan process.
Right. Right. Because there's accountability to pay back the loan and
Yep.
the liability, and there needs to be calculated measurements. But with the cash offer, there's no risk on
No,
anyone's part except for
you don't
the
have to do an
offer.
appraisal.
So let me ask you
And
this: a little bit off topic, but I see the brand behind you, your home sold, guaranteed realty Colorado, and I'm just dying to know, why not just Barb Schlinker Realty, and what does that do for you, and how does that benefit your clients?
Well, I've discovered over the years, I've been with several different brokerages. I've had my own company probably since, when did I start? 2008. And it was named after a family name. My last name is Parker. I'm sorry, my maiden name was Parker. My current last name, my now permanent last name, is Schlinker, right? Which people have a hard time remembering Schlinker. And I learned from my father-in-law that it might have formerly been a name of St. Clair. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. So I named the company Parker St. Clair. And what I found from doing the marketing that I was doing, the people calling in, when my staff answered the phone, "Hey, Parker St. Clair Realty, can I help you?" They're like, oh, is this Barb's office?" They didn't know if they were at the right place. And over that time period, I discovered that the brand at that time, it wasn't what they were looking for. They didn't care because the brand didn't mean anything to people. It was just like, Parker St. Clair, what does that mean, right? The whole thing about your home sold guaranteed realty is that we offer guarantees for buyers and sellers, a whole bunch of them. And the idea of naming the company what we do for our customers, for me, was very, very attractive, right? So when people go online, because they do now, they don't just rely on an ad or a mailer. They're going to go from there and they're going to go to Google, which is your specialty. You helped me with that. Thank you very much. Um, and they may not remember what they saw, but they're going to Google something about that. And hopefully, if we're doing our job right, we're coming up, right? It's a benefit rich name, and it's very effective.
Wow.
In fact,
So
they did some generic searches to find out. All right, let's search all the local brand names you've heard of. Remax and Keller Williams or whatever, and just doing a national search, and your home sold, those three words got triple the results because
Wow.
it's benefit rich.
So by having a brand that is more successful per se, that actually benefits your clients because your listings will get more exposure. You're
Absolutely.
and by having these listings, then you have more options for buyers with listings that are your listings.
Yeah, for sure.
So at the end of the day, your success is actually their success, which helps you grow your business and make you a better asset for them to leverage into better situations for them.
Yeah, I mean, we get the job done for sure, and that's our goal. I mean, it's so funny. I had the pleasure of meeting with a 91-year-old uh, veteran who was a POW in the Korean War. I didn't find that out until the end of our meeting, and my jaw just dropped. It was just shocking to hear his experiences. But he's still healthy at 91, doing great. And he bought the house, where kind of late in the market. So he bought it with his VA benefits, 100% financing, and he put it on the market with another realtor. They were on for about a year, and it just wasn't working. So he canceled his contract with her, and he called me. Well, the way real estate agents work is to get business. Many of them will, if a seller cancels their agreement, they will immediately just call and go, hey, do you want to sell your house? Do you want to sell your house with me? It's not like that we give out their phone number, because we don't, but they can use all kinds of spy software and find out their phone number. So people were calling him, and they were saying, hey, are you still interested in selling your house? And he's like, and he was there for every showing, so he knew who came over. He's like, well, where you been? I've had it on the market for the last year. And every single one of those callers, when he asked him that question, they hung up on him. They didn't know what to say, right? It's
Yeah.
like, you want to list my house, but I've had it on the market. How come you haven't shown up with your buyer before?
Right.
Even
Right.
somebody came to the front door and said that. But the answer is, well, if you were my client, my job is to sell your house, and I would absolutely do it. And that's
Yeah.
why we've named this company this way.
Wow. So it's really kind of a different way of looking at real estate altogether. Instead of focusing on buyers and kind of having lackluster numbers per se, you're focusing on helping people sell their homes, and in the process, you end up really helping more people and making it more beneficial program.
Yeah, I mean, uh, our open houses that we have, they average 20 to 40 people. My biggest
Wow.
one was 173 in
Wow.
1 hour,
Yeah,
but that
we've
was during the
been we've gone to a number of open houses, and I got to tell you, I've never seen more than a few people at an open house, if that. Most of the
yeah,
time, it's just me and my wife and kids tromping through somebody's house, muddying up the floors, eating
right.
a cookie. Just and it's just
Yep.
us. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and that's all about creating demand. So we know how to do that, and that's what we do. So if a home seller wanted to go on the market and try to attract somebody like that, and just see what the open market would bring, versus looking at one of the half dozen or more cash offers that we have, that's fine. Our goal is to get them 100% of market value, or we'll guarantee that we'll pay them the difference.
So you have a source, like a kind of like a pool of cash offer investors.
We do. We have, just within the platform, we have over 67 of them right now. Plus, we have our own
Wow.
internal cash offers. One of my cash buyers and one of my agents is really good at. She, for some reason, she attracts people that like to invest in real estate in her business. So typically, I'll tell her before the house goes on the market. I'll say, "Hey, Jen, I got this one listing," and I'll tell her about it. She goes, "Oh, I have a buyer." And so She's from China, so she has a little bit of an accent. She's really adorable, real smart, really great agent. And she will run through. In fact, I just saw her yesterday. She ran 11 buyers through this listing before we ever went on the market.
Wow.
And
Wow.
those are live in person, people that will pay cash, people that will let them stay after closing if they need to get themselves, organized before they move on to their next house. We have a lot of options for people. And the other way that we could use cash offers, which I think is very important, is the number one question I get when I have a listing on the market and an agent went through with her buyer, the buyer likes the house, they will call. And the first question is, do you have any other offers? Well, with all of our listings, I can say, yes, I do. Bring your best and highest, and we'll be presenting offers, whatever, Monday afternoon. Because I do. I have on any listing at least a half dozen offers that they're going to have to compete with.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's one way we can use it. And then another way, and this happened before. I'm going to talk story because I think people relate to stories. I had an agent that came to my listing. We've been on the market a while. We started high. Even they don't always listen to me, and they start their price a little bit high. That didn't work. We worked it down. We're finally getting offers. I'm like, okay, if you're getting an offer, you're in the ballpark. Stay right there, right? The problem was the offer that we got was contingent on them selling their home, and this was recent. So this was kind of like a even more varsity education for me about how little these other agents actually know about selling real estate, right? So I said, look, I said, all right, well, I will present it because we didn't have any other options, right? And the seller was willing to look at an offer contingent on this buyer's home selling that was not on the market yet. So my first question to her was, well, do you know where you're going to price this home? No, not yet, but it's really beautiful and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. And then they insisted that we change the status in the MLS to tell the world that we had a contract. And I tried to talk the sellers into saying not to accept that status because other agents don't understand it and they assume that the home is not available, even though the status means that the seller accepted a contingent contract, but the buyer's home is not sold yet. So that was one of the things that they negotiated. And then the number two thing was that, I said, look, what is the address of the home that your buyer has to sell? She gave me the address. So right when we were on the phone, I put it up in my cash offer app and presented it to those 67 cash buyers. Immediately, I got 6 offers. I said, hey, I have
Wow.
6 offers on that home. How about if I present these to you and your seller? Her answer was, no, we're just going to do it the traditional way. So she was like, no, I don't want anything to do with whatever you have to offer me. But the way I see it is, if a buyer really wants to own this house, she didn't even give her clients the opportunity to take a look at those offers. And then a week later, the house goes on the market. No kidding. It should be selling for $525. They priced it at $710. There's just no way, while I'm still slightly young, that home is going to sell anywhere near that number. And I'm like, what is she doing? She's wasting everybody's time. So thankfully for the seller, they asked for a bunch of stupid stuff on the inspection. We didn't reach agreement and the contract fell apart. Yay. And I sold it myself.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you this. So I got about 10 minutes left here. Let's do 2 things. First, what is the wildest thing you've ever experienced in all your years of real estate? And then after that, give us the top 3 advantages to using a cash offer program.
The wildest thing. Well, I would say I've had a lot of, I do handle homes. I've handled about 200 homes that were taken back in foreclosure from the Secretary of Veterans Affairs over the last 12 years now. And there was one actually last year that was pretty wild, where I don't know if I should tell this story, but basically, the home had a domestic dispute that ended up in a triple murder suicide.
Wow.
And so in our state, and it varies state by state, if there has been what they call a psychological event in the home, we're not allowed to disclose it without permission from the sellers. So that was the first thing I did. I asked the VA, because I know our contracts, make us not liable. For sure, all the neighbors knew this had happened, right? Basically, they got into a fight. He killed her and her girlfriend who was there, and she was pregnant, and then he killed himself, all in this one room in the front. And so I'm like, okay, then I went to Google, and I'm like, because one of the things that they do is ask us, what is your opinion of its value? So I asked Google, how much less would a buyer pay if the home has had a triple murder suicide? And right away, it gave me an answer. I was really shocked anybody would ask that question, but I got an immediate answer. It said 15 to 25%. So when I gave them an opinion of value, I whacked the price. It should have sold for 500. I said, we need to price it at 350. And they didn't listen to me because they also bring in an outside appraiser to establish value. They priced it at $399, which was still $100,000 worth its current market value. The moment I put the home on the market, immediately showing after showing, agents calling, going, oh my God, my buyers love it. And so we can't disparage a property online. But I did put in the showing agent remarks, please Google the address before you show. I figured they would do that, right? No, they weren't doing that. So this one agent called and she goes, my buyer loves it and they want to make an offer. And I said, okay, did you Google the address like the instructions said? And she goes, yeah. And they just love it. I said, okay, well, I have permission to disclose that this is the site of a triple murder suicide. And I get this long pregnant pause and let me talk to my buyer. And even the ones that went to all the trouble to make a written offer, there were 20 offers. I sent it in writing after that because I had a feeling they still didn't know. And the reason I did it was I wanted the buyers to be fully informed about everything about that I knew about the property, especially it would be horrible for them to find out after closing about this, right? Because the neighbors are going, hey, did you know? They're going to tell them. So I sent emails to all of them, and 3 of the 20 dropped off and ended up selling for $455. So Google was wrong. It was only about 10% off market value at that time. But what it taught me is that a majority of the real estate agents out there don't do any research, right? They just get a buyer that says, hey, I want to see it. They pop tart out of the toaster, go show it, and hope to make a commission. And they don't really research the property.
What it shows me is that I really have this sense of. Did you say 21 years? Even though there's 21 years.
29, yeah.
29 years. So many people, even after 5 to 10 years, they just get cold, and it becomes, routine and rote, and there's not really much passion in it. But when I hear this story, what I hear is, you still really care about the buyers and the sellers. You really still care about the people. Yeah. It really is kind of a passion project, and it's something that you're deeply connected to, and that's what sticks out to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's important that I do the best thing I can for them with whatever tools and knowledge I have. And to me, it would be irresponsible for me not to know, right? And so that's why I do the radio show every week. That forces me to study the market and different aspects of the business and tell the stories that I have, in hopes that the consumers that are listening, which I get more and more of them, is kind of fun. I do talk smack about real estate agents on the show. I don't say their name. I just tell the story and the experience so that they can apply it to their knowledge. Because what I find working with customers is they don't know. They just assume just because you've been in the business 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, whatever it is, all there is to know about real estate. And not everybody knows all there is to know. I learn stuff every single week, but I'm just saying that there are some people that in the agent industry that don't make it their business to find out, and I do. So,
wow, you mentioned a market report. You do a market report? Is that right? Do you do? How often do you do that?
Once a month. So I'll send it out to my entire database, and it's included with the video because I know a lot of people don't like reading. I get hundreds of emails every single day. So for me, it's like Craigslist going down. I can't process all of them. So I'm just looking for the ones that I really care about. But at the end of the day, people really love something short, not a long video, but a short 3 to 5 minutes. Hey, this is what's going on. Okay, got it. So I bring in statistical data from really quality professional stuff. Like the MLS statistics are awful. They come out once a month. They don't really tell the real story. And so I'll talk about that, and I'll talk about just some tips on the secret sauce to get the most money when you're selling, some ideas to get your payment down when you're buying, anything like that to help them whenever they are ready to do real estate. So
how does somebody get on the mailing list to get that market report?
just go to barbhasthebuyers.com.
Barbhasthebuyers.com.
Yep.
And I noticed that you've got kind of a nickname, Colorado Barb. And also in doing a little research, I found out that your name is actually a real estate keyword in the Google keywords section.
That's
So
amazing, actually.
it's 29 years.
You've helped me with that for sure. But because the name Schlinker is kind of like, what's that? How do you say that? But yeah, Colorado Barb is more of a nickname that it was my very first domain name that I ever bought. And it was just a fun thing. So I named my email after it. A lot of my colleagues in my mastermind group call me that, but you can call me anything you want. Just go to barbhasthebuyers.com.
All right, lightning round. Quickly, top 3 reasons to go with a cash offer.
Number one, it's kind of like CarMax for real estate. If you've ever sold a home on CarMax, it is literally the easy button. You put your car in online, you get an offer, you go down there with the title, and you get a check. It's done deal, no repairs. You can pick your closing date. Typically, you can close and be done in 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But that is not the only offer. We've got a half dozen of different offers that you get to choose from, whichever one is the best one for you.
Okay, what's the second reason?
I think buyers and sellers, in particular sellers, want certainty. And there's nothing more frustrating for home sellers when they go on the market and it's not selling and they don't know when it's going to sell. Or when they go under contract and then the buyer starts asking for stuff. Or they don't know if the appraisal or the loan is going to go through. I just closed one that was 3 weeks late in closing. And no matter how I tried to push it along, it seemed to me the buyer's agent team, it was a part-time job for them. And, I was like, guys, I needed this information as soon as you got it so we could close when you said you're going to close. So all of that mysterious stuff, when the sellers are banking that, okay, you're going to do what you say you're going to do, is really frustrating. And what I found from selling dozens of homes this year through the cash offer system is that those sellers did those buyers did exactly what they said they're going to do. They close on time. There's no mystery about what's going to happen from start to finish.
And I'm guessing the third reason, just a guess, is going to be the no showings, right?
Yes, people get intimidated when I come over, which I think is weird, but I'll tell them, don't worry about how the house looks when I come over. I'm not judging you. I'm not taking pictures that day. So imagine having to do that on call every day, make your bed, make sure your dishes. It's a constant project for me to try to keep the house tidy. I can't do it. I have help, but that is quite a challenge. And most agents will tell you, oh, you got to be ready anytime a buyer wants to see because they rule. I totally throw out that idea. I think the more exclusive, the less available it is, the more likely you are to get multiple offers and sell it faster.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm awestruck by your professionalism, your heart to help people, and your ability to leverage different opportunities like a cash offer program to really just do a great job for your clients. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And how can people get in touch with you?
BarbHasTheBuyers.com is the
Barb
easiest one to remember, or you can call me at 719-401. I'm sorry, 719-301-3900.
And I'll put all that in the description as well. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much, Barb Schlinker. I
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me, Chuck.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.